Chapter 501. The Puppets 2. Hupe. My body jerked upwards and before I knew it, I was all the way up the staircase that we had come from before. Clank. Without waiting for me to react, the trapdoor closed right after. What happened? With Keys and Kalian staring in the direction of the trapdoor, I closed my eyes and pursed my lips. He's been lying to us the entire time. I thought back to all the moments and subtle hints that were there. He never knew where the mastermind was. He only just said that to keep us with him for the short period of time he had left. For someone as powerful as him, I'm sure the mastermind will have to focus all of its attention on him. He probably bet on that moment to let us go so that we can free everyone while the connection is weakened. That darned old man. And I thought you hated liars. You even killed me for it. Yet, here you were, lying straight to our faces. You darned lunatic. Still, do you really think we're just going to do things the way you wanted us to? Like he said, we were idiots. 3 idiots. Crack crack. A sharp cracking sound jolted me out of my thoughts. I turned my head to see several figures. In the distance, all moving toward us with their characteristic stiff, uncoordinated gait. They're here. I felt my expression stiffen at their sight. I recalled the nightmarish experience from before, and almost felt my heart sink. Especially when several dozen appeared right behind the first 2. However, stop. With a simple command from Keys's voice, the puppet stopped. His expression faltered slightly at the sight as he looked at the scene in front of him. My control seems to have gotten significantly better. I was surprised by his words. Turning to look at the puppets, I snapped my finger. Quote. My expression changed at the sight that greeted me. Shoo. I wasn't the only one surprised as Kalian and Keys looked at me with similar blank looks. I turned to look at the threads that covered every inch of the room and scratched the side of my head. I could count more than 60 of them, all within my control. With just a thought, I could move every single thread without struggling. It's not like I couldn't do this before, but never before did my mind feel so clear in the past. I felt in control of nearly everything, and with a simple wave of my hand, the threads vanished into thin air. Just then, I heard several distant thumping sounds. Thump, thump. It came directly from the puppets as I severed the threads right above them. Quick, get to them before the threads connect with them again. Looking up, I could see the severed threads trying to make a connection with the people once more, but unlike in the past where they'd reconnect in an instant, they were much slower. Keys saw this and flicked his hand up. Let me. Instantly, the 2 bodies floated in the air and rushed in our direction. The threads followed right behind, but Kalian was ready as he took out a familiar-looking box. Dang tilde. The threads immediately stopped moving, and so did the other puppets in the distance. Wait, when did you get that? Quote. The old man tossed it to me at the last moment. With a sudden realization, I looked toward the 2 people next to us. They both looked young, about the same age as us. One was a male with long dark hair while another was a young girl with wavy brown hair. From their appearance, they both looked relatively outstanding, and shortly after the connection severed with them, their eyes started to flutter. It looks like they're waking up. I took a step back to give them more space. Kalian and Keys did the same, and shortly after their eyes fully opened. Pipe. At first, their eyes appeared out of focus, almost blank. However, with each blink of their eyes, clarity started to return to their eyes as they finally turned their heads and noticed the 3 of us. Who? Quote. Who are? They could still not speak properly, but I could see they were slowly starting to comprehend what was happening around them. I waited a few more seconds before speaking. There's no need to be wary. We're here to help you. Quote. Help. The girl blinked her large eyes, her crystal clear blue eyes focusing on me. What happened? It looks like you don't know. I pursed my lips and looked towards the distance where the puppets stood, frozen in place. I could see several more puppets accumulate behind them, and I knew we didn't have too much time before we'd soon start getting overwhelmed by them. Thinking for a moment, I took out a few pills I had saved up and placed them in their mouths. Eat up, it'll make your recovery faster. Though hesitant, the 2 had no choice but to trust me as they slowly chewed on the pills I fed them. The effects of the pills were almost instantaneous as the 2 showed more signs of recovery. Slowly sitting up, their speed of recovery was enough to surprise Kalian, who turned to look at me. What did you feed them? Quote. Nothing special, to be honest. It was just a simple pill that could clear the mind. They're not actually injured, so I didn't really give them anything heavy. It's more like a little stimulation to help them wake up. Oh, quote. My head, holding onto their heads, the faces of the two scrunched up. What in the world happened? Quote. I can't really remember a thing. That doesn't really matter. Keys walked up to them and bent over to look at them at eye level. Your entire house is in a crisis, and we don't have much time before we'll soon be attacked. I can tell that neither one of you is weak, so recover quickly so that you can start helping us. You, covering the guy's mouth, the girl looked at Kalian and nodded. We understand. She then turned to look in our direction. My name is Cora Astrid, and I'm one of the 7 spears of the Astrid household. 7 spears. Though I was confused, I didn't show it. But that was enough for the girl to understand. I see. So you're not from around here. Quote. Your silence only serves to prove my point even further. Judging from your reactions, you have no idea what the 7 spears are. I guess not. Keys replied, his tone carrying the usual indifference he always carried. Cora laughed bitterly before speaking. The 7 spears are the top candidates within the House of Astrid, all under the age of 25. We're the most talented individuals in the household, and the next in line for the Lord's seat. So you think we aren't from around here based on the fact that we don't know? It's normal to not know, but she looked at the 3 of us before smiling. You 3 aren't normal either. I am not sure about your strength, but you're not weak. People of your stature would definitely know about us if you came from the Eastern Kasha. I would also know about you. The fact that I don't. Alright, I get it. I silently sighed before reaching out for my face and massaging my mask. What even is the point of a disguise if they already know about our identities? I thought about taking it off but decided against it. It never hurt to be safe. So long as the mastermind wasn't found, I wasn't planning on removing my mask. We're not from around here, but we're here to help. Are you from the Empires? 11. It's not hard to guess, to be honest. The young girl shrugged. Taking a look at the situation, our house has probably closed off its doors to the outside world, and without us, a lot of things don't function. One of the few that are directly affected by our absence are the Empires who can no longer trade with us. She wasn't wrong, but something about the subtle smirk on her face that seemed to say, I can see right through you, irked me. I thought the people of the Kasha were supposed to be brutes. That's only if you come from a small family. The House of Astrid can afford to provide basic education to all its members. Shrugged, the girl helped herself before helping the other guy. He's Serge, and while he isn't a spear, he's still quite strong. Don't look down on him. Pipe. Serge looked at us in silence without making a single sound. I took in his gaze before shifting my sight toward the puppets in the distance. Crack. There were a lot more now, and I knew it wouldn't be long before they broke through. After a little bit of thought, I looked around me. We were currently in quite a large room. The only way out was the door where all the puppets were, with the trapdoor right behind us. The best course of action for us would be for the 3 of us to carefully hold back the puppets while at the same time, sever the connection slowly with each one and help them recuperate at the back. As Keys spoke, he turned to look at Cora. You seem fit enough to fight. In case we can't fully hold them back, you can interfere. In the meantime, he can help your people recover. I can do that. Cora nodded determinedly. Staring at the 2, I looked towards the entrance and then the box. Yes, it's not a bad plan. Either way, the more people we help convert back, the easier it becomes for us. My only worry would be the accumulation of puppets. If too many accumulated, we'd be in trouble. As if reading my thoughts, Kalian brushed his hair back. If there's too many at once, I can directly use myself as bait to lead a few away. That should give everyone enough time to switch rooms and repeat the cycle. Quote. That'll work. It felt good to be with a group that fully understood the situation. With all worries out of the way, I gently closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Since that's the case, let me be the one to start. Taking a step forward, a black film wiggled from beneath me, covering every inch of the area in front of me. Quote. Can we trust them? Right as Julian stepped forward to handle the puppets, Cora heard Sergei's low murmur. She pursed her lips and looked at him. I don't know, but what other choice do we have? If not for them, we would have still been puppets. But they're clearly from the Empires. And, like I said, what other choice do we have? So, they're still from. Boom. It was then that they felt it. A powerful, almost suffocating pressure burst out from one of the three people who had helped them. As their heads flicked in the direction of the source, their eyes eventually fell on the old-looking man. Cora's brows knit tightly at the sight. Domain. She too had a domain, but even so, anyone who could develop a domain was quite well respected within the Kasha. A Tier 5 user was well respected. However, her shock didn't die down there. Shortly after, the entire room grew dark, purple. Hands emerged from beneath the ground, clamping down on the many puppets in the distance. They came from all sides, folding the very fabric of the domain, desperately reaching for the puppets. It was a cold sight that made Cora's brows furrow even further. Given their tone of voice, they mustn't be that much older than us. Perhaps they are all in their 30s. Cora could see that they were all wearing disguises. This was mostly due to the fact that they hadn't bothered trying to change the sound of their voices. Single quote. Considering their age and power, they must be quite talented. Enough to give her a run for her money. Still, she was confident she could still win if the two of them fought. But that was until, what is? The domain changed. Yes, changed. At that moment, Cora stood up, and so did Surge. As they stared at the gradually shifting dark world, where the grass had suddenly sprouted beneath their feet and the sky loomed above, they felt the pressure from before intensify, almost doubling. How could this be? This made no sense. Staring at the scene in front of them, neither one of the two knew how to react. A second domain? How was this possible? It made no sense. Pushing his hands apart, the purple hands, carrying several puppets, moved to the side while over a dozen more appeared behind them. Crack crack. They all rushed in Julian's direction as his body started to pop and squirm. Clenching his fist, his back tensed and his spine popped. In one swift motion, he steadily punched the front. Bang! A thunderous clap resounded through the air shortly after that as the puppets were all pushed back several meters. This. Gobsmacked, Cora and Surge could hardly find the right words to speak when all of a sudden several bodies were thrown their way. Thump, thump. A cold voice followed right after. Take care of them. Make sure they know what is happening and have them recover as fast as possible. We'll hold up the front for as long as we can. Chapter 502. The Puppets 3. Single quote. This is starting to get a little difficult. I could feel the sweat drip down from the side of my face. It felt strangely cool. I took a deep and steady breath. I was slowly starting to tire out. Staring at the numerous puppets ahead of me, I flicked my hand and cut the threads above them before sending them behind me. How long have I been doing this for? I had lost count by now. All I knew was that I had been going at this for at least several hours. I was on the verge of exhaustion, and when I looked to my right, I saw Keys standing calmly. You can switch with me when you're done. Quote. Yes, I'll switch soon. I probably could have pushed myself further than this. This wasn't my true limit. If I wanted to, I could squeeze myself until utter exhaustion, but I don't have to do that. Yes, I didn't have to do that. I wasn't alone. I didn't need to suffer like I once did. Therefore, I'll hold them back for a minute longer. Get ready. Okay, this was good. I felt liberated, but at the same time, it felt strange. This is probably the first time I haven't pushed myself to the point of death. A part of me wanted to keep pushing, but I also knew I shouldn't. Staring at the puppets who were mindlessly moving in my direction, I took a deep breath. Taking a step forward, the gravity intensified and their movements slowed down even further. Raising my hand, threads emerged from out of nowhere, slowing the puppets further. I took one final deep breath and looked at the puppets. There's a lot. I could count more than several dozen. There were even more behind. A minute is almost up. Tell me when you're done. Quote. You'll know. With a light laugh, I let out all the air within me. The grass beneath me started to wither and the sky slowly started to fade. Darkness once again engulfed my surroundings, exposing a raw and untainted domain. Snap, snap. Seeing the threads I had set up to block the puppets snap, and them coming out of the area of supervision, I knew it was time. Holding my palm forward, the world turned purple. Keys's expression paused from beside me as he stepped back. Close. That was the moment I closed my palm. And the entire domain started to disfigure, turning into one large purple hand that clenched down on the puppets within. Quote. Clenching my teeth, I stepped back and the domain shrank rapidly, closing in on the puppets as the background returned to how it once was to the room above the trapdoor. Thump, thump. Several bodies appeared shortly after, and without hesitation, I sliced my hand in the air and severed the threads above them before sending them behind me. Keys took over from them. Pressing his hand forward, the puppets that were left unaffected by the domain stopped moving. Seeing him effortlessly contain the remaining puppets, I finally let go and slumped down on the ground. Thump, ha, ha, my lungs were on fire and my hand slightly trembled, but my mind was still clear. All in all, I think I did a good job. I was happy with my progress. Still, things were far from over. Turning around, I was just about to help the others when I realized something. Pipe, 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 pipe. Over several dozen eyes were staring in my direction, all wearing the same stupefied looks on their faces. Oh, there's a lot more of you than I thought. You. When I turned to look at Cora, she was sporting a similar look of surprise as the rest. However, she was also quick to snap out of it as she swallowed her words and started speaking. Yes, thanks to you we were able to free a total of 47 people. Almost everyone has recovered and it's become a lot easier to treat the people you sent back. I see, that's good. She wasn't lying. Staring at the other people alongside her, I could see that they were almost fully conscious. They probably can hold back the puppets by themselves if I let them. Unlike before, the puppets were now significantly weaker. With the mastermind's attention fully focused on the old man, it probably had no time to fully control the remaining puppets. That was also a cue telling me to speed things up. The moment the old man was converted, there was no escaping. Time was running out. I needed to save as many people as possible. The more people we had, the better it was for us when trying to leave this place. We should do as you said. Looking at Cora and the others, I stood up and ate a few pills. I don't know how much time we have left. Since that's the case, we should speed things up. For those that can fight, please form multiple groups. Each group can go out and repeat the process that we're doing. The more people we free, the easier things will be for us. Pipe, 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 pipe. I thought I'd be met with looks of understanding the moment I issued my orders, but why should we listen to him? I don't trust him at all. Instead, I was met with looks of doubt and rejection. That's when I realized, did they all figure out we're from the empires? Owning, I was just about to say something when Cora beat me to it. Are you all stupid? All eyes fell towards her. Let's forget about his origins for a second. He's literally telling you to save our own, and you are here wasting time because you think he's not trustworthy. Since when have we become so stupid? Aren't you just feeding directly onto our stereotypes? Standing up, she eyed the group with a fierce expression as her brown hair fluttered silently. If you can't trust his orders, then trust mine. Form groups and start saving people. I don't know the exact situation as well, but time is of the essence. Hurry up. Yes, understood. The difference between us was night and day. The moment she spoke, everyone listened to her orders as they all stood up in unison and started forming groups. I could tell from her words alone that her position within the House of Astrid was nothing to scoff at. Shortly after that, several started to help out Keys while others rushed out of the room. I stared at the scene speechlessly before Cora stopped next to me. Do not blame them for their hesitation. I turned my head to look at her. Do you know why many of us in the Kasha hate those of the Empire? Because they don't let you in. PFTT, it's more than that. Giggling, Cora's expression gradually turned serious. Why do you think there aren't that many beggars within the empires? Because. I didn't know the answer. Wasn't it simply because the empires were prospering? And it wasn't like I never saw beggars before. I had been to the slums in Bremer. It's because most of the beggars get thrown here. We're the discards of the empires. Descendants of those that have been banished by them, or people that have been directly banished by them. For what reason? Because we were born unfortunate. I wanted to rebuke her words, but I didn't know how to. I didn't even know this thing until now. See, you're probably not aware this is happening. You probably just see enough beggars to think that everything is normal, but that's the furthest thing from the truth. Every day people get thrown out of the walls. Resources are scarce and the worthless ones get thrown out. That's why I'm telling you to understand their resentment and why no one trusts you. How can you trust the same people who kicked you out of your own home? If we were useless to you, would you discard us? Placing her hand over my shoulder, she smiled and left. I stood on the spot, blankly staring at her back without being able to find any words for her. If we were useless to you, would you discard us? I thought back to the old man and closed my eyes. That was when everything became clear to me. Ah, I should have realized it sooner. ... And I finally found my voice again. Wait up, I have something to say. The more puppets were converted, the faster things progressed. In less than an hour, since the groups split up, the number of people that had been converted back was well over 100. By the time the second hour passed, over 300 had been converted, and by the time the fourth hour passed, everyone within the mansion had been converted back. Courtyard. Is there anyone missing? Has anyone found anyone else? No, there's more outside, but everyone within the estate has been converted back. Good. Cora stood alongside 6 other people. They were the 6 other spears of the Astrid family, and they were currently the main people in charge. Any news about the elders? The reason why the 7 of them were in charge was because the elders were somehow missing. There's no news yet. I believe they are outside of the estate. I see. Cora nodded before looking around. Everyone was currently gathered in the courtyard, ready to leave at any moment. Since everyone is here, should we leave? Cora looked at the 7 other spears and pursed her lips. Common sense dictated yes, but recalling the last conversation she had with the one from the Empire, she found herself stopping. She didn't know how to feel about them. It was true that they had indeed saved them, but they were still people from the Empires. People who had thrown them or their parents away for being what they were. How could they trust such people? Still, it was true that they had saved them. For saving us, I'll believe you this once. And thus, no, all heads turned in her direction. Pursing her lips even more tightly, Cora looked towards everyone present and closed her eyes. Get everyone ready. Ready. Ready for what? Opening her eyes, Cora's lips parted open as she mumbled. Quote. A grand wedding. It was dark. Single quote. They should be gone now. Amidst the darkness, an old man sat with his legs crossed. His body was entangled in a web of threads, and he looked older than he previously did. He was now truly an old man. Even the vitality in his eyes almost seemed to have faded. He didn't have very much time left. But even so, he wasn't sad. He thought back to the 3 idiots he had met and knew that they had completed their task. They were idiots, but they were competent idiots. That's why he felt at ease. So long as his people could get out, what did he care about himself? Cough, cough, coughing, the old man turned to look at the piano and reached out for it, but pipe. His arms refused to move. His eyes dimmed. If only. Bang, bang. All of a sudden, he heard muffled bangs coming from above. They were faint at first, but with time they grew progressively louder and the old man had no choice but to raise his head. What? This? The old man's confusion merely lasted a few seconds before he heard a loud bang, and light filtered through. Bang. 3 figures appeared shortly after and his expression changed. What are you doing here? What do you mean what are we doing here? Stepping forward, Julian looked to his right and left. Didn't you say it yourself? He laughed. We're idiots. 2 stupid idiots and me. Chapter 503. A Blue Sky 1. World integration. The moment one's mind becomes integrated into the world, allowing them to bend nature at their will. And the moment one truly became the zenith. As always, it's gray. Mumbling quietly, he stared at the dark sky above. They say the skies in the Empire are blue, but I have a hard time believing the tales. Can such sky really be blue? From what he knew, the blue sky meant light. It meant prosperity, and most importantly, freedom. It meant freedom. Extending his hand, he tried to grasp the sky. Unfortunately, it's out of my reach. He felt it at his fingertips but couldn't fully touch it. If he could just pull it. If only. What a pity. Staring at his old and wrinkly hands, he lowered it back down. I really wanted to see the blue sky. He could if he entered the Empires, but he didn't want to see it there. He wanted to see it in his home. Not just him, but the people too. He wanted everyone to see it. The fabled blue sky. A pity. Freedom only existed for those who could afford it. Unfortunately, he couldn't. Placing his hand on the piano, he started to play. Dang tilde. It was also then that he noticed it. The first thread. What are you doing? The 3 of us stared at the poor excuse of an old man. He looks to have aged even further, and his mind seems to have regressed again. He's still conscious, and that's enough. We hadn't even left for less than a day and he was already on the verge of losing himself. We're here to get you. Quote dot dot dot. Ha. The old man's murky eyes fluctuated. You, stop. It. No, you don't seem to get it. I pointed directly at the old man. We're here to get you, mastermind. 11. Both Kalian and Keys looked at me. So did the old man. What are you? I too was surprised when I found out, but it all then clicked. How could someone as powerful as you be subjected to such treatment and not find the culprit despite the many months that have passed? It would make no sense. The old man was strong. So strong that I found myself comparing him to Delilah. She was the strongest person I had ever met, and I thought she was still the strongest after I met the old man, but now I was sure that wasn't the case. The old man before me. He was truly the closest thing to the zenith. Or, had been. I wasn't so sure now, but if there was someone who could subject someone this strong to such a situation, it'd have to be someone at the zenith. Why, you're crazy. Despite the truth being right before the old man, he refused to believe it. And since that was the case, I guess we have no choice but to fight you. We what? Quote dot 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 dot. Are you nuts? Both Kalian and Keys looked at me as though I was a lunatic. I wasn't. What? He's tangled up by all the threads. What are you afraid of? In his current state, if we work together we might have a chance at defeating him. But he's still fine. Keys was the first to agree. Clenching and unclenching his fist, he mumbled, I've always wanted to fight this old man. His response was enough to make Kalian raise a brow. Wasn't he supposed to have no emotions? Quote dot 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 dot. He probably just wants to fight him because he's strong. Right. Cough. Coughing once, the old man weakly raised his head. You've lost it. It doesn't matter if we do. Get ready, old man. The old man's face changed for the first time. I could see rage appear on his face. I told you to leave. Why are you still here? This is dangerous. The moment that threads take over me completely, I will end up killing you. Get out of here, idiots. I could practically see what he was trying to say just from his face alone. I was quite good at reading people's faces by now, but idiots are idiots for a reason. Then, without waiting for the old man to say something, I was the first to move. Pressing my foot forward, the gravity around the old man shifted. I then started to feel changes happening within my body as my muscles widened and power flooded my entire body. That's when I punched out in his direction. Bang! My fist landed on his bare chest, forcing out a pained groan from him. Quote dot 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 dot. Yuck. The threads above him gently swayed as Kalian followed right behind me, throwing an even more powerful fist on the same spot I decided to hit. Bang! The threads swayed further and the old man's eyes flared with rage. You bastard. If looks could kill, he'd have killed many times over. As he raised his hand, a powerful pressure seemed to descend upon the area around me. It rendered me stuck on the spot. Thankfully, Key stood right behind me, pushing his hand to the side and throwing my body to the side. Bang! The floor caved in as the old man stood up. Hoo! His attack didn't contain any mana and yet the floor smashed into bits. Seeing his attack miss, the old man turned to look at Keys, but that was when Kalian stepped in and smashed his foot against the back of the old man's calf. The old man turned around and threw a punch in Kalian's direction. Swoosh! The air stirred under the weight of his punch, even causing some of the threads connected to him to snap. I took note of the sight. Keys. Yes. Lifting his finger to the side, Kalian's body flung to the side and avoided the fist. My turn. I glanced to my right and left before lifting my hand, summoning purple hands from beneath the ground. There were over a dozen, and they all headed for the old man who tapped onto the ground and just barely avoided them. Even more threads snapped. Quote dot 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 dot. Come here. He was still angry. With a fierce look, he brought his hand in my direction and I felt myself get pushed in his direction. Or at least, that was how it looked like. The moment my body reached his hand, it disappeared out of nowhere. Ha! The old man looked surprised at first before he clicked his tongue. Pointless trick. He swatted his hand and I felt my body get pushed to the side of the wall. Bang! Yuck! This time, it was my real body. It hurt. The pain was real. Ha. The old man seemed to find my pain amusing as he suddenly laughed. His laugh was loud as his snoring. How annoying. I held onto my nose and glared at him. Quote dot dot dot. Fuck, I think my nose is broken. Just touching it hurt. Boom. Flicking my head up, I saw Kalian's body get smashed all the way up the ceiling. The impact was so strong he remained stuck there for a few seconds. He. Quote. Ha ha. I couldn't help but laugh as well. I now started to understand why he was laughing. At least, until the old man settled his gaze over me again. I looked at Keys. How about Hayuk? I was thrown to the side once again. Bang! It hurt even more than before. Ha ha ha. A thunderous laugh reverberated through the room as the old man laughed his heart out. Was my pain so funny to him? To make matters even more humiliating, he pointed his finger at me while laughing. Quote. Ha 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 coo. Huff. His laugh was cut short by Kalian, who appeared behind him and bit his ear. The old man hurriedly pushed Kalian away, but the damage was already done as blood leaked down from his ear. Touching his ear, he grew furious. You, poo, spitting blood onto the ground, Kalian raised his hands. Not so funny now as I. Boom, he was suddenly thrown up again. I swallowed my saliva upon seeing the sight. Single quote. He didn't even get to finish his words. Hoo. Seeing the old man's gaze fall on me again, my back chilled. Fuck, why is he just targeting the two of us? No, more importantly, where was Keys? Bang, right then, the wardrobe flung in the air and crashed onto the old man's head. Pieces of wood broke everywhere and the old man's body froze. But if that wasn't enough, swoosh, the bed also flew in his direction right after. No, with movements faster than they previously were before, the old man raised his hand and stopped the bed in the middle of the air. He then glanced at Keys and flung his hand to the side. Bang! Finally, he also got sent crashing against the wall. Hoo. The old man's breathing was rough. His face looked even older than before, but a smile appeared on his face. He's having fun. He felt more liberated, as if the threads weren't weighing down on him as much as they previously were. Snap. Seeing him like this, I tried to get up but quickly gave up and leaned back onto the side of the wall and forced my mouth open. I once had a conversation with an old man before. The old man looked at me. I asked him, "Are you scared?" Do you know what he said to me? I had his full attention. He said he was scared. Someone so strong was scared. The concept was weird. Normally, one would assume a strong person would never feel scared. But he wasn't scared of death. Then again, his fears were quite deep. What scared him was not death, but everything that he was losing while being alive. Like his intelligence. He didn't want to go back to the naive old little boy he once was. He didn't want to be discriminated, laughed at, and be forgotten. There was nothing scarier than losing oneself while still being alive. I knew because I saw it. His fears, his vulnerabilities, and his past. Cough. Holding onto my chest, I helped myself up and limped towards the exit of the room. Quote. Follow me. Keys and Kalian similarly stood up as the old man stood with a blank look. He didn't say anything and just stood there. I knew he would follow. After all, he was still sane. He would have killed us by now had he not been. And a few seconds later, he followed us up. We walked up the stairs, all the way up to the familiar upstairs room before heading down to the courtyard. It was then that my steps paused. Several hundred pairs of eyes paused in our direction. The color red dominated the surroundings. Holding onto large drums, people looked towards the middle where a groom and bride appeared. Next to it was a large piano. I looked at the old man next to me, a few threads still attached to the old man. This was the sight you wanted to preserve, right? The happiest day. To not forget, he wanted to preserve. Even when lost, he wanted to remember. As such, the threads arrived. They were the manifestation of his obsession. His obsession with not letting go. Did miracle drugs exist? They didn't. There was no such thing as a miracle drug. Quote. I should have known. The old man was the first to realize this. What is today's date? To forget even such a simple thing. The old man thought he had time, but he didn't. What is your name again? From names to places, to even his own name. He was slowly forgetting himself even though he was still alive. Sometimes, he felt like he was already gone. Lost in a maze of memories that he could find no way out of. Thump. As red dyed the world, drums boomed in the air, and people laughed and danced. The old man stood motionless, imprinting the scene in his mind. This looked like a wedding. Whose wedding was this? Single quote. I'll slowly forget this soon. The old man looked around once more, and the happier he saw the people, the more he wanted to preserve this memory. He didn't want to forget. And so, he made sure he wouldn't forget. That was when the threads rained down. You probably don't even remember you did it, but I wasn't lying when I said you were the mastermind behind everything. Julian's words quietly echoed through the stillness as he stood at the edge of the courtyard. His gaze fixed on the lively wedding unfolding before him. The vibrant celebrations seemed distant, like a world he was no longer a part of, his voice lingering in the air, swallowed by the chaos of joy that surrounded him. With your intelligence regressing, you made everyone repeat the same thing over and over again so that even if you did end up forgetting, you'd relive the moments again. The drums stopped, and all noise ceased. The old man looked around, his face slowly lowering. He seemed ashamed. Perhaps, he was also aware of the truth. Or was faintly aware of it. He probably forgot all about it. That was why he trained us and helped us deal with the situation. Perhaps he wanted to get everyone out before it was too late and he fully lost himself. I thank you for everything. A quiet voice suddenly cut through the silence. Before the old man knew it, someone had spoken. He couldn't recognize them, but he felt it. He felt their warmth in his heart. He may be losing his emotions, but not his mind. Thank you for everything, Master. Another one followed right after. The only reason why I am here is because of you. Thank you. For your services, thank you so much. One by one, people started to thank the old man. Everyone wore smiles on their faces. This felt like a farewell. A farewell to an old man who was not so old. And then, old man, the groom stepped forward, appearing right at the center. You might not remember Master, but you were the one who picked me up when I was dying in the streets and brought me here. The old man actually remembered. He remembered a kid who was once starving in the streets, all skinny and on the verge of death. Was this him? Looking at him now. Without you, I wouldn't even be alive. The kid smiled. His smile was so bright and filled with hope. And now, look at me. Pointing at his bride-to-be, the young man smiled. I can only have you to thank. You may forget about me, but I will never forget you. Ah, the old man's shoulder shook. Snap, snap, the threads connected to him started to snap. His eyes were set on the piano at the center of the place. Unknowingly, he started to move in its direction. Snap, his steps were wobbly, but with each step he took, a thread would snap. Snap, snap, the more threads that snapped, the faster he became. Snap, snap, snap. Until eventually, he was right in front of the piano. He halted in his tracks, staring at it for a moment before slowly sitting down. The world grew quiet then. Dang Tilda. The first note played. This will be your first test. You will need to play this tune. His master's voice echoed. It was during the time when he first took the drug. It's okay if you fail, but what matters is if you can get better and complete it. If you can complete this song, it'll mean you're getting smarter. His first proof of intelligence. He played the next few notes. Unlike before, he was no longer stuck. His mind felt strangely clear, but at the same time, his memories started to fade. He slowly lost sight of who he was and what made him, him. Even so, he didn't forget to play his tune. Dang such a simple tune marked the start of everything for him. The start of his life, and the start of his journey. With such a tune, he also wanted to make the end of his journey. Dang it was a short journey, but he didn't have any regrets. Surrounded by his family, the old man's hand paused as he looked up at the sky. It was gray. M doesn't like the sad sky. He raised his hand, and reached for the sky. His fingers touched it. He felt it, and he grasped it. Pipe. The world grew silent. No one made a noise. All eyes were fixed on the sky above. All besides mine. I looked in the direction of the old man who slowly brought his hand down. Dang, and with his last note, he closed his eyes. That was when he took his last breath. That day, a man touched the sky. That day, a man ripped the sky. That day, the sky became blue. And that day, a man became part of the sky. Chapter 504. A blue sky too. Could a man really touch the sky? Even if they reached the zenith, could they really touch the sky? In the past, I would have scoffed at such a notion. How could someone touch the sky? You'd have to be a god to do so. And yet, it's blue. That very notion I refused to acknowledge appeared right before my very eyes. The sky is blue, but how? How could it be? Am I seeing things? Did the sky really change? This Ha ha ha. The joyful laughter and voices of the people around me brought me out of my thoughts. Gazing up at the dull, familiar sky I had long grown indifferent to, I watched their reactions, and at that moment, I realized that what I had always taken for granted was a gift they always strived to see. Master, you did it, Moss. It was also amid their joy that they finally took notice of the old man and their reactions changed. Master. With his gaze on the sky, he was smiling. He was smiling, but he's not breathing. Check his pulse. Someone. Master. Everyone started to crowd the old man. With clear worry in their eyes, the people hurried toward the one man who had sealed them into puppets. And yet, there was no resentment in their eyes. Just worry. Master. Ah. Someone. Any medicine. Pills. Someone. I bet the old man would have been pleased to see this. He was a man who didn't want to forget. A man who didn't want to be discarded by the people he loved. In the end, in his worry, he created this whole scenario which rose from his obsession. Ironic considering how he was trying to get us to get rid of our own obsessions. Still, in his very last moments, he was able to get rid of his obsession and touch the sky. He saw through the end but was never able to reach it before his life came to an end. He wanted to rip the sky, but became the sky. Such was what his life amounted to. A cold, yet fulfilling life. Hoo. As I heard a cold breath coming from my side, I looked to see Keys staring intently at the old man. I saw the faint changes in his face and jaw. It was a sight that would have shocked me in the past, but that was no longer the case. A certain someone's voice rang in my mind. People don't get close to you because you keep rejecting them. Even if your personality is nasty, if you don't reject them, there's bound to be some people who will stick with you. Maybe then I won't have to worry about you all the time. Can you promise me that? How annoying. Remember this feeling, this pain. It'll help you recall better. Keys slowly turned his head to look at me before blankly stating. Emotions are painful. Ha, yes, they are. But beyond the pain, there was something else. They're also what makes everything look colorful. Like the change in the sky. From gray to blue, from sadness to joy. The pain you're feeling, it's sadness. I know you already know it. He probably was well aware of the pain. Though he couldn't feel emotions, that didn't mean he was ignorant of them. He knew, but he just needed reminding. It's pretty. Keys's voice gently brushed past mine as he looked towards the sky. The sky, it's pretty. And that was when I saw it. The small and crystal path tracing down his right cheek. I opened my mouth but soon smiled and looked at the sky. Right, the sky was indeed pretty. It looked like any regular sky, and yet, something about it felt so different. It was really pretty. Excuse me. Right then, a familiar voice reached my ears and I slowly tore my sight away from the sky. Looking down, Cora appeared not far from me. She looked at the three of us with a complicated look before she eventually lowered her head. Thank you. She wasn't the only one. Following her, everyone else turned in our direction. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We were flooded with endless gratitude. Beyond their gratitude, I once again looked at the old man. Now that I think about it, I don't even know his name. I never once asked. In his memories, he never showed a name. The people referred to him as Master. I knew this because I had gone into their memories too, using the second leaf. It was through that I was able to figure out the truth of everything. Did he even have a name to begin with? People from the Empire. Cora raised her head to look at us in the eye. As the foremost authority present, I want to thank you on behalf of the House of Astrid for your help. For helping our master, and us overcome a large tragedy. From this moment forth, we'll not look at you as enemies of our house, but friends. Thank you. I nodded in acknowledgement. I didn't quite understand what her words meant, but I guess it meant that they owed us a favor. Well, good, because I might have to use that favor really soon. Even now, I was still not in contact with Almighty. Though I was worried, I was too busy handling this entire situation. Still, given the fact that my connection was still stable, their situation wasn't dire to the point where I'd have to be extremely worried. With that being said, it was still far from ideal. Thankfully, it seems like I might have just found myself the right reinforcements for this. Looking around and seeing the numerous people available, I was just about to speak when we heard a large bang coming from the distance. Immediately all heads turned in the direction of where the noise came from. Bang! It was another explosion, this time closer than the previous one. What's happening? Are we under attack? The surroundings suddenly grew tense. And just as the atmosphere reached a boiling point, another explosion resounded. Bang! This one was louder than all the previous ones. What came after were several silhouettes, all wearing familiar red robes. My brow raised at the sight. Elders. And the moment one of the people around me recognized them, the previous tension that lingered in the air shattered. Elders. Elders. You're here. Several people ran up to them. What happened over here? Is everyone okay? There weren't many of them. Just a few dozen, but the pressure each individual gave out was nothing to scoff at. Head elder. In particular, an aged woman with long white hair and dark robes. The moment she appeared, the surroundings grew silent as she turned her head in our general direction. I felt my body freeze on the spot at the sight of her. She's very strong. Perhaps not at the same level as the old man, but it was nothing to scoff at. Her brows furrowed the more she looked at us. Who are you? As she raised her hand, an invisible pressure swept over me, freezing my body in place. Just as she was about to act, someone intervened and stopped her. Wait, it was Cora. Rushing towards the head elder, she went by her side and explained to her the situation. Almost immediately, the head elder's face changed as her features softened. I see. The pressure revolving around us was alleviated. I almost caused a discourtesy. I apologize for that. I didn't mean to do so, but you're. She pointed at our faces and that was when I understood. Ah, right, we were still wearing our disguises. I looked around me to see both Kalian and Keys look at me at the same time. Without much thought, I placed my hand over my face and pulled the mask off. Well, it doesn't matter anymore. Right as I pulled the mask off, a dead silence followed suit. Surprised, I raised my head to see everyone staring in our direction with gaping mouths. In particular, the shock on Cora's face was hard to describe. What? Noticing their lost and confused expressions, I briefly glanced to my right. A few words began to leave my lips, but I found myself suddenly pausing mid-sentence. I bet they're surprised by your stupid. Right, he wasn't here. I scratched the side of my face and saw Keys and Kalian looking at me. Staring at them, I dismissed them with a wave. Don't bother with me, I was just talking to myself. Pipe, before everything. How did I even fall into an illusion? Leon's expression was extremely grim as he looked at the owl. Suddenly being told he was stuck in an illusion, he didn't know how to feel. He felt lost, especially since he never noticed the change. You most likely fell for the illusion the moment you touched my leaf. What? Getting someone to fall for an illusion is extremely easy. It can be a simple action or a single item. What matters is if someone is aware that they're in the middle of an illusion. I am aware. I know you are, which is why the situation is not bad for you. As Almighty raised its head, it started to look around the place. Illusions all have their own rules. The first and most important step is knowing that you're inside of an illusion. The moment you find out you're inside of an illusion, you'll know that nothing within can truly harm you. Yes, Leon listened to the owl attentively. He could still recall the owl turning into a tree just a few moments prior. Though he didn't show it on the outside, Leon was secretly cursing inside. That bastard, I thought it was strange that he got an owl a while back, but it's clear now. He teamed up with the monster that almost killed us last time. Leon almost felt like strangling Julian. Only he would be insane enough to work alongside someone who almost killed him. Oh, wait, it is also important to remember that within the illusion, your real body is slowly being drained of its life. The longer you spend within the illusion, the more dangerous things will be for you. I am aware. Leon had already experienced this before. In fact, his situation had been extremely bad back then. The stronger your mental capacity, the longer you'll be able to survive. In your case, you should be able to last a few days within the illusion. Just a few days. Yes. The owl looked around. Don't be too sad, human. A few days may not sound like a lot, but you're dealing with an incomplete form. Leon looked at the owl. He sort of understood what it was trying to say. Finding the core of the illusion shouldn't be too difficult. Especially since I'm here with you. Flapping its wings and floating into the air, the owl looked in the direction of the dimly lit hallway ahead of them. Follow me, I'll lead you to it. It was just as the owl started to move when it stopped and looked back. Right, I forgot to mention something. The illusion should be the least of your worries. What you should be truly worried about is the one waiting for you outside of the illusion. The mastermind behind all of this. The owl shot forward without elaborating any further, leaving a stunned Leon standing by himself in silence. He eventually snapped out of it after 2 seconds as his face grew grim. Should be worried about the one waiting outside of the illusion. Pushing forward, Leon almost cursed out loud. Eventually, he thought better of it and shouted, "What about Julian? Wasn't he in trouble?" He is. As Almighty's voice echoed from afar, Leon found himself rushing forward. And I've lost connection with him. I'll be able to communicate with him once we're out. Without saying anything further, the owl picked up speed. Leon could only silently follow it from behind. As he followed, he caught the faint sound of Almighty's voice. It seemed more like a whisper, one that wasn't meant for Leon to overhear. Existence. Chapter 505. The Northern Walls Fall 1. Single quote. Everything looks normal, as if nothing is out of place. If not for the room and the fact that he had been warned by the owl, Leon wouldn't have noticed that he had fallen for an illusion. This alone made his back grow cold. What would have happened had he not been warned? Leon's lips pursed tightly as he rushed forward. He didn't know where he was heading, but he was sure the owl knew where to go. All he had to do was follow it. As such, he paced around the estate without saying a single word. Talk. Within the silence that gripped the surroundings, the only sound he could hear was the faint click of his shoes and the flutter of the owl's wings as they navigated through the empty and dimly lit hallways. Where did it go? Pausing, Leon looked around before heading left. Single quote. Ah, here. He was unfamiliar with the surroundings, and with everything being so dim, he had to rely on his ears to properly follow the owl that blended in the darkness. I feel several presences in here. Right as Leon lost track of time, navigating through the hallways, the owl came to a stop, pointing its beak in the direction of a certain door. This is. Leon squinted his eyes to get a better look. Dining hall, it said. Holding onto his breath, he turned to face the owl and asked, "How many presences do you feel inside? How strong are they?" "There's 4. That's all," the owl said, its tone as indifferent as it always sounds. Leon casually acknowledged the owl's words before pressing his hand against the door. Suddenly, his body grew tense as his other hand gripped tightly onto the hilt of his sword. Because the owl didn't specify the strength of the ones inside, he felt a bit nervous. Of course, he didn't think he couldn't beat them. Surely the owl wouldn't try to get him killed. Leon's brows furrowed. Wait, now that I think about it, isn't this Julian's owl? Leon licked his lips, which had become strangely dry. Surely not, right? He turned his head to see the owl's cold and indifferent eyes and swallowed. Surely. Where the fuck are we? Don't tell me that we're lost. Just then, he heard a faint voice coming from behind the door. His brows immediately jumped up and he leaned his head closer to listen in. It seems like we are, but how is that possible? I'm sure we followed the right path. Apparently not, you dumb bitch. What did you just call me? Leon's expression froze upon hearing the familiar voices coming from behind the door before soon relaxing. His previous tension eased and soon after, he pushed the door open. Clank, I called you a dumb bitch. Is it so hard for you to As the door opened, Aoife and Kira stopped talking, and they both simultaneously turned their heads to look in Leon's direction. Leon, looks like you also got lost. Behind the two of them was Evelyn, who sat on one of the chairs with her palm on her forehead. She looked tired of it all. Her expression alone seemed to say, "Kill me. I want to die. I'm done dealing with the two of them. Someone help me." She was so absorbed in her thoughts that she didn't notice his presence. Leon, walking up to him with a frown, Aoife looked around. It's good that you're here. I think there's something wrong with this place. Evelyn noticed it first, which is why the three of us were able to be together, but I'm afraid everyone else is lost. Aoife thought back to her experiences and her frown deepened. It's like the place is constantly changing. I can't tell where anything is, and every time I try to retrace my steps, I find myself in an entirely new place. Is that what's happening? Leon didn't really notice this. He followed the owl the entire time, so he didn't have to worry about retracing his steps or going the wrong way. However, when he thought deeper, this really seemed to be the case. It's almost as if it's trying to trap us inside. The longer we stay here, the more dangerous it will become for us later. Right as Leon opened his mouth to relay what he knew to them, his face froze. Hold on a second, and his brows flicked up as he looked around the room. 1, 2, 3. Leon suddenly felt a tight grip on his heart as he turned his head sharply, scanning the surroundings with greater alarm. His sudden changes gained the interest of the girls who looked at him with frowns. "Are you okay? Did something happen? Why are you acting weird? Leon, since when did you?" "Shish." Leon pressed his hand against his lips and retrieved his sword. He could still distinctively remember the owl's words just before entering, and his heart sank when he replayed them in his mind. "How many presences do you feel inside? How strong are they?" "There's 4. Leon looked around and counted. 1, 2, 3. Where was the 4th? There was no 4th. "Leon, is everything okay? You're acting weird." Bang. The ceiling suddenly collapsed, sending large chunks of it flying down onto the ground. The faces of the girls changed rapidly as a large root appeared from above the ground, stabbing right towards them. Hike. But it was too late. Before Kira could even have the time to react, the root directly grasped onto her throat. Its movements were so fast that even Leon found himself struggling to react. But that wasn't all. Bang, bang. The entire room shook as the sides of the wall shattered and even more roots appeared. Leon's face grew pale at the sight and he quickly raised his sword in order to fight back against the root, but, bang, he was absolutely no match for it. With one whip, Leon was sent flying back, his back crashing against the nearby wall as he spat out a mouthful of saliva. Okay. Just as his trembling hand pressed against the ground to push himself up, something cold and slimy brushed against his ankle. Squelch. His breath stopped as he glanced down, only to see a dark root slithering up from beneath him, its veiny surface pulsating as it wrapped tightly around his foot. Squelch. Squelch. The sound grew louder, more sickening. Panic surged through him as more roots began to emerge from the shadows, writhing like serpents. Before he could react, one coiled around his arm. Ah! Leon felt the air get sucked out of his body the moment the root took hold of him. Ook! He thrashed and strained, his muscles burning as he fought against the roots that clung to him like living chains. His fingers clawed desperately at the air, searching for anything to grab onto. "No! This can't be happening," Leon gasped, his voice hoarse. Eventually, his eyes fell on a certain owl and he reached forward. Help! He reached out to the owl in hopes it would help, but all he received was a cold and indifferent look. A thick, gnarled root surged up, coiling around his wrist with a wet, sickening squelch. Ook! No! The root yanked his arm down with brutal force, pinning him to the cold, damp ground. Squelch! Squelch! The sound grew louder, more relentless, as countless roots began to sprout from the earth. Their forms weaving around his limbs and torso. They crawled up his legs, tightened around his chest, and snaked around his throat. The air felt colder, heavier, as his struggles became weaker. Panic was replaced with a numb dread as the roots enveloped him entirely. Darkness crept into his vision as his body grew still, and the faint echoes of his muffled cries faded alongside those of the girls. In the end, Leon's strength gave out and silence enveloped the surroundings. Overlooking everything in silence, Almighty's indifferent eyes gazed directly in Leon's direction before turning around and leaving. Squelch tilde. Its job was done. How old did you say you guys were? This was probably the 4th time the head elder had asked us the question. Shortly after her appearance and the situation cleared up, we were escorted to a private room where the head elder greeted us. She, alongside the others, carried the same look of surprise upon seeing our real faces. We're 20. Answering her again, her aged face couldn't help but scrunch up a little as she mumbled. How impressive. I would have thought they were older considering their strength, but, glancing at us again, she sighed. It looks like we've underestimated the people of the empires. They haven't been slacking. Thank you. The only thing I could think to do was thank her for her compliment. She merely waved her hand at us. Don't bother, we're the ones who are thankful to you. Given everything that you've done for our house, the only ones who should be thanked you are us. As she said so, she looked towards the window displaying the sky. A faint smile tugged at her lips upon laying her sight on the sky. I've always wanted to see the sky you guys boast about so much in the empires. I can't say, I'm disappointed. Lowering her head, a faint sadness lingered within that smile of hers. I understood the smile all too well. While the sky signified liberation, it also signified grief. I didn't know the relationship between her and the old man, but I was sure it was close. Placing her hand down on the table, she quickly pinched her chin and took a deep breath before looking at us. I heard a short summarized version of what happened from Cora, but I'd like to hear your side of the story. How exactly did you meet and how did you solve the entire situation? To her question, I chose to respond. I knew the entire situation better than anyone else and thus, I explained everything to her. From the start until the end. It took about half an hour for me to explain everything, and by the time I was done, the room grew silent as the head elder seemed lost in her thoughts. She continued to mumble things to herself while sitting there in a daze. This was until she finally snapped out of it and looked at the three of us. Her gaze, it felt ever warmer than before. If before she treated us nicely because we were her saviors, right now, it almost felt like she was regarding us as members of their own house. As her lips parted open to say something, her expression suddenly changed. Quote? Lifting her head, she looked towards the window and her face stiffened. Similarly turning my head, I found myself staring at the tall walls in the distance. At first, I didn't notice anything abnormal, but it then happened. Bang! A terrifying, yet muffled explosion. Its sound reverberated throughout the entire surroundings, shattering all noise from the world. Bang! The noise persisted one more. And then, bang! The walls shattered. Chapter 506. The northern walls fall too. A few moments prior, northern walls. The situation beyond the walls protecting the eastern Kasha wasn't great. Don't let the defensive line fall. Keep everything contained. Let the mages shoot down at the monsters. Quote. Someone go to the defensive third unit and support them. The walls are about to be breached. Standing at the helm of the walls was none other than the head of the House of Myron, Arden Myron. He, alongside several other well-known houses, took it upon themselves to protect the walls from the invading monsters. The walls protecting the city were split according to the cardinal points, north, south, west, east. The House of Myron was currently in charge of protecting the northern walls. With the mirror cracks currently in a state of turmoil, the situation was rather dire. Monsters continued to pour out and given the fact that the House of Astrid was missing, they lost a lot of their firepower. Bang! Keep holding. Injuries continued to pile up with time, and more cracks appeared on the outer layers of the walls. Arden's expression grew solemn upon seeing the situation. With no reinforcements in sight, this looked to be a last-ditch effort from their end to try and preserve the place that they called home, but at this rate, we might not last more than a week. Did they really have a chance? Would the horde of monsters stop by the end of the week? Arden massaged his face. He was tired. So tired. With no clear end in sight for the situation, he felt the energy get sapped away from his worn-out and battle-scarred body. He had been fighting for quite some time, and he didn't even have the time to properly greet the guests from the Empire. Thinking about them, Arden closed his eyes. I wasn't able to greet them properly, but they gave me a rather good impression. If they joined, then maybe we'll be able to relieve a bit of the burden from the soldiers, but would they really be of any help? Strength wasn't the only thing required when dealing with the monsters in the outer walls. The cadets needed to be well versed in the orders and needed to be organized. If they weren't able to properly organize themselves or take in orders, then there was a very good chance they could become burdens instead of helpers. This wasn't a risk Arden was willing to take, and as such he was quick to dismiss the idea. Opening his eyes again, he raised his head to look at the somber gray sky, a perfect reflection of his inner mood. Stepping forward, a magic circle appeared in his hand. It carried a faint purple hue, and a terrifying pressure burst out from it the moment it appeared. Locking eyes with a certain monster in the distance, a shiver ran down his spine as he instinctively tensed his back, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to snap. His fingers twitched, readying the magic circle in his hand. The beast, a tall and skinny creature covered in long hair that cascaded down onto the ground to display its sickly pale eyes, took a slow, deliberate step forward, its claws scraping against the ground with a grating screech that sent chills through the air. Arden's expression tensed ever further as the two locked eyes, and just as he prepared to act, something happened. Swoosh! The world suddenly grew white. Yes, it grew white. And everything came to a sudden stop. Nobody understood where it came from and what happened, but it happened fast. So fast that they didn't even have the time to blink. By the time the world recovered, the sky changed. Quote. Everything came to a sudden standstill then. All eyes lifted up and stared towards the sky. It's blue. Mumbling quietly, Arden's mind blanked. He couldn't understand the sudden changes, and the same was true for all the people present. How is this possible? Am I seeing things? The sky. The sky. Everyone's mind fell away from the walls and towards the sky. How could it not when the same sky that had plagued the Kasha for so long suddenly disappeared? That same sky was the very same reason why they couldn't grow crops, and why their land was deemed forgotten. The change didn't just signify change, but it also signified freedom. Their lands, they were now free. However, the joy was merely short-lived. Snapping out of it, Arden's head flicked to face the city as he suddenly noticed several figures sprinting in their direction. Arden's eyes squinted and he soon got a better look at the figure. Aren't they the cadets? Indeed, he could recognize them. Although they were all wearing a disguise, he could see their faces. Staring at them and seeing them all rush forward, he frowned. What are they doing? He had directly told them to not come anywhere near the walls. Why were they suddenly here? House leader, what should we do? Should we stop them? Overhearing a few concerned commands from the people next to him, Arden raised his hand. And stop them. No, they're with us. Let them pass. Are you sure? Yes, they are my responsibility. Understood. Let them pass. Don't stoop them. Arden's eyes narrowed while following the cadets. His thoughts juggled over several possibilities before suddenly, a thought occurred to him. Could it be because of the sky? Wait, could the sky be related to them? Arden's expression shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly, until he felt something land on his shoulder. Turning his head, he caught sight of a red leaf drifting down. Catching it with his hand, he looked at it for a good moment until squelch tilde. He felt something grip his ankle. Flicking his head down, his face froze at the sight that greeted him, and just as he snatched his foot away, he heard a large bang coming from the direction of the gates. What are you doing? Stop. What is happening? We're under attack. Turning to look, his face changed dramatically when he noticed the cadets attacking the walls. At the same time, bang, bang, the combined power of all the cadets was nothing to scoff at, and before Arden could even react, spells rained down on the walls. No, no, no. Arden rushed forward in an attempt to stop them, but by then, it was already too late. From behind the cadets, a shadow burst into view, a lone figure streaking through the air with both hands on his sword. In one swift motion, the figure slashed downward, striking the walls. Boom! The deafening explosion shook the ground as the walls crumbled down like an avalanche. What is this? Arden's breath stopped, his legs trembling beneath him as the chaos unfolded. All of a sudden, his mind raced, and his own voice echoed within his mind. Yes, they are my responsibility. Hike! A shrill, bone-chilling screech pierced the air shortly after. Arden's gaze snapped downward, his face growing pale at the sight that greeted him. Boom, boom! Through the shattered walls, several large monsters surged forward, their grotesque shapes illuminated by the flames devouring the walls. As his ears rang relentlessly, Arden tumbled forward. What have they done? He whispered, the weight of the situation crushing down on him. What they done? What is going on? The moment the walls crumbled, we all rushed down to see several elders of the House of Astrid rushing in our direction. The northern eye has crumbled. Monsters are starting to flood into the city. How many? What's their general power? We can't determine, but it appears that there are at least several terror-ranked creatures. We cannot exclude the possibility of destroyer ranks being present. I understand. Despite the gravity of the situation, the head elder remained cool-headed and merely nodded her head upon hearing the short report. She then started issuing orders after a little bit of thought. We've been absent for quite some time. Everyone looks to have recovered from the entire ordeal. It's about time that we fulfill our job as the foremost house within the Eastern Kasha. Flicking her hand, she turned to look at the courtyard. Prepare everyone for combat. Those who are already ready should proceed to the northern walls. Ensure that as few monsters as possible reach the residential districts. Send a few others to reinforce the other walls. Yes, understood. With that, the elders scattered around, issuing orders to all that could fight. I stood by and watched everything from behind as the head elder finally turned her attention in our general direction. With a wry smile, she lowered her head. I apologize, friends from afar. But as you can see, we'll have to halt our talks for now. There are pressing matters that we must attend to. If you wish, you can stay within the walls of our estate while we handle the situation. We can continue the talks shortly after that. No, it's okay. I raised my hand to stop her. Turning to look in the direction of where the northern walls, my lips pressed tightly together. They're over there. My connection with Almighty once again returned. Although I could still not communicate with the owl, I knew they were there. Since that was the case, there was no need for me to stay here any longer. I looked at the head elder directly in the eye. We'll be going too. There's no need for us to stay any longer. How could this? We already owe you a great debt of gratitude. We can't have you imp. It's not that. I interrupted her before she could finish her sentence. Our classmates are currently there. Since they're also fighting there, we might as well join them. Surprised flashed across the aged woman's features. There's more of you. A lot more. Her expression grew a little strange, but she didn't ask any more. Very well. She held her hand out to me. Since that's the case, you three grab onto my hand. I'll bring you all directly to the northern walls. Okay. I reached forward and grabbed her hand, Keys and Kalian following right after. Get ready. Following her words, my vision abruptly shifted, and the surroundings transformed. The air became noticeably thicker, and a strong smell of smoke assaulted my nostrils. Ook! It was really powerful, and by the time I recovered, I was met with a sea of flames. Ah, that wasn't all. Screams and monsters appeared everywhere. The scene was chaotic. Recovering my vision, my eyes eventually fell in a certain direction and I came to an abrupt halt. The same was true for the head elder, who paused and looked back at the three of us. Are they with you? I didn't answer but merely looked toward the few familiar figures, rushing alongside the monsters and attacking the knights positioned by the walls. Swallowing quietly, I nodded. Yes, it was them without a doubt. It's them. Chapter 507. Don't look 1. How did things turn out like this? Kalian mumbled, staring at the scene that greeted him beneath. He stared at the individual faces and understood that they were the same people that he knew. How did this happen? They've fallen under some sort of mind magic. Hearing Julian's voice, Kalian looked at him. He seemed unusually calm about the situation, especially considering how things were evolving. It almost felt like he knew in advance. But there was no way, right? No, wait. Kalian suddenly recalled the owl and it all clicked into place. I lost connection with Almighty a while ago, so I had an inkling that something like this would happen. Kalian paused for a second and blinked his eyes. Did he just say Almighty? Surely he didn't hear wrongly, did he? Wait, did you say mind magic? Yes. Julian nodded seriously as he mumbled, take a look at their eyes and see how unfocused they are. They're not acting out of their own will. This looks like something coming from the spirit category of mind magic. Ah, Kalian quickly understood. Spirit magic was the most unique and rare form of magic that came from the mind category. There were rarely any people who were born with talent in it, but those who were born with such talent were quite the noteworthy figures. This was essentially due to how unique the spirit category was. Most of those who were talented in the spirit category ended up becoming high-ranking clerics due to their ability to manipulate and control souls. Especially powerful spirit users could control the souls of other living beings such as monsters or humans to do their bidding, in some sense like mind control. Of course, there were specific limits to such magic, and just like emotive magic, it was extremely hard to improve. There was a reason why there weren't that many spirit users. However, just like emotive magic, those who succeeded in such magic all became extremely powerful and noteworthy figures. Realization dawned on him knowing all this and looking down to see the familiar faces. A spirit user is controlling them. His expression grew grim at the realization. If someone is controlling them, then the only way we can free them is to directly find the one responsible for all of this and deal with them. This time, it was the head elder who spoke. She had come up with a similar conclusion to Kalian's and her expression was similarly grim. In any case, while it is important that we figure out who the mastermind behind all of this is, we should start taking action before your classmates end up dying. Bang! A muffled yet terrifying explosion echoed in the distance. Flicking his head to look at the chaos, Kalian saw the members in the northern wall directly dash down the walls to attack the monsters and cadets. Attack them. Kill them. Don't let any one of them survive. He could see a massive difference in skill level and knew that if they didn't interfere soon, things would get quite bad for them. He wasn't the only one who understood this. Be it Julian or Keys. The two of them understood as well, and with the help of the head elder, they rushed forward. Arriving just close enough to the scene, the head elder infused her voice with mana and spoke, "Stop." Her powerful voice reverberated loudly throughout the surroundings. It rang loud enough to sweep everything, and several figures stopped at once. In particular, she caught the eye of Arden, who froze mid-motion and looked in her direction. "Rosanna." His voice carried hints of surprise, but soon his surprise turned into wariness as he noticed the three figures standing alongside her. "I don't recognize their faces, but one of them feels particularly familiar." He was talking about Julian, who felt eerily familiar to the old man he had, mistakenly, assumed for Professor. His frown deepened at the thought as his head raised slightly to eye Rosanna Astrid, the current head elder of the House of Astrid. Ting. Pressing her staff onto the ground, a terrifying pressure swept the surroundings, halting the advance of the monsters momentarily. "Stop your attacks at once." "Ho." Arden's eyes narrowed, briefly glancing at the frozen monsters. "Stop. Do you have any idea what they've done? Do you? Look carefully, they're being controlled." Rosanna pointed directly at the cadets, but Arden didn't even spare them a glance. "Do you think I can't see that? Then, do you think we have a choice in the matter? If we don't get rid of them, then they'll enter through and kill everyone within the borders. Had you been present then?" "I understand." Pressing her hand, she cut Arden off and looked around. "We were in a situation ourselves, which is why we weren't present, but don't worry. We have managed to resolve it, and it's thanks to these three." She gently nudged in Kalian, Julian, and Keys's direction with a gentle smile. At the same time, the pressure coming out of her body intensified. Beneath her, the monsters shook and several of the weaker ones exploded on the spot. Bang, bang, blood splurted all over the streets as she looked down coldly. "Cleaning this up might be a lot more troublesome than I thought." There were quite a few powerful monsters that she couldn't deal with quickly. Thankfully, she wasn't the only reinforcement from the House of Astrid. With then, rumble, Rosanna's expression suddenly froze. Slowly lifting her head, her gaze fixed on the direction of the shattered gate. Rumble. A deep, guttural tremor resonated through the air as a massive, clawed red hand emerged from behind, gripping the top of the crumbled wall with unnatural force. Its shattered nails scraped against the stone, sending a spine-chilling screech across the surroundings. Shortly after, a powerful pressure enveloped the surroundings. When did it? Careful. Almost immediately everyone grew alarmed. For a monster of such immense proportions to appear so suddenly and unexpectedly, it was as if the air itself froze in shock. Bang! The walls shattered, forcing several people to leap back as an enormous humanoid red creature emerged. Its hollow eyes, long and stringy black hair cascading unevenly from the sides of its head, and sharp, angular nose combined to create a truly terrifying sight. Kalian found himself stepping back at the sight of the creature as Rosanna stepped forward. Yes, this is going to be quite troublesome. At the same time, she glanced in Arden's direction and the two nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Destroyer rank. Destroyer rank. Beyond terror was the Destroyer rank, which ranged between Tier 7 and Tier 8. However, what truly made Destroyer-ranked creatures scary wasn't their tier, but their intelligence, which was a level above that of a terror rank, capable of fully understanding emotions and other aspects of the human mind. Boom! Lifting her staff in the air, an enormous blue magic circle formed in the air as Rosanna eyed the monster in the distance, who took notice of her, offering a creepy and unnerving smile that reached the ends of its face. The atmosphere seemed to freeze over at the sight of the smile. It was just a simple smile, and yet, why does it feel like it's mocking us? Right, it was mocking them. Why? But why? Bang! All of a sudden, a muffled bang echoed from the very opposite end of where they stood. Rosanna's expression stiffened, and so did that of everybody else present. Bang! Another muffled bang resounded in the air, and the tension that filtered through the air seemed to magnify. This became especially glaring upon hearing the third, and last muffled explosion as the walls on each side of the city crumbled. Ho! This! Kalian looked at all sides of the city with a pale expression as his lips pursed tightly together. This is really bad. Rosanna's expression alone was telling enough of how serious the situation was. But if that wasn't enough, turning his head one more time, Kalian's lips parted open before freezing on the spot as the spot he turned to look at was empty. Where in the? Feeling his heart sink, he looked to his left and right, but regardless of where he looked, he was nowhere in sight. Eventually, his gaze fell on Keys, who looked back at him with a silent expression. The two stared at each other for a few seconds before Keys's lips parted. Quote dot dot dot. Why do you even look surprised? Are you sure it's this way? Quote dot 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 dot. Yes. Pebble's voice echoed quietly inside my mind as I nodded and kept my footsteps light. Slipping past everyone wasn't exactly easy. Especially since there was such a powerful person standing next to me, but the sudden appearance of the destroyer rank monster made things a lot easier for me. Added with Veil of Deceit, I was able to slip out rather quickly. Swoosh. Navigating through the rubble, I carefully made my way past the chaos at the focal point. Slipping through one of the major cracks in the shattered walls, I slipped out of the city, exposing me to the outer area of the Kasha. Pipe 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 pipe. Stepping out of the walls, my steps momentarily paused upon seeing the sight that greeted me. I did a double take to make sure I wasn't seeing things, but looking at the area in front of me, I felt my stomach flip. This is worse than I thought. The land before me was completely arid, devoid of any vegetation while monsters appeared to lurk everywhere, all of which were mindlessly moving towards the walls as though they had a mind of their own. The air felt heavy, and the ground beneath me was cracked and dry. Normally, I wouldn't feel too much upon seeing this sight, but what truly took my attention was the massive tree that appeared in the very far distance. Despite the distance, it still stood tall, reaching toward the sky. Its blood-red leaves swayed faintly in the air, casting a chilling and oppressive atmosphere all around. Something about its leaves felt compelling, and the more they swayed the more I felt myself lose sense of my mind. Russell, Tilda, wake up. Pebble's voice was all it took for me to snap out of it as I quickly shifted my eyes away from the tree. At the same time, I felt my heart beat loudly against my mind as I pressed my hand tightly against my chest. That was close. Lifting my head slightly, I felt a close sense of dread upon seeing the tree in the distance. I merely glanced at it for a second before looking away again. Just one look and I felt my mind start to fog up. Be careful. Unlike me, Pebble had no issue staring at the tree. Hearing Pebble's solemn voice, I kept my face down. However, its next words almost made me jump up on the spot. Quote I don't know how, but it looks like that stupid tree is close to breaking through to the destroyer rank. Chapter 508. Don't look too. I took a deep breath upon hearing Pebble's words. I wasn't too surprised as a single glance was enough to give me a clue. Just a single glance was enough to put me into a trance. That alone was enough to give me a sense of dread that I hadn't felt in the past when interacting with the tree. What exactly happened to the real body in the time that Almighty was with me? I thought about the question for a good minute before snapping out of it. Lifting my head and staring at the numerous monsters that moved directly from the tree, I pursed my lips tightly. Right, this isn't the right time to think about this. There was a more pressing matter that I needed to tend to. Turning my head, my eyes eventually settled over several figures who all rushed out at the same time, their destination the tree in the distance. As expected, they're all going to the tree. They were most likely going to serve as nutrients for the tree to break through to the destroyer rank. My heart pressed at the thought. If the tree was allowed to break through, then I was afraid that even the head elder from the House of Astrid would not be able to do much. By then, everyone would be forced to leave and Leon and the others would most likely die. That couldn't happen, especially since Almighty had yet to contact me. What are you thinking of doing? Quote What else? Licking my lips, I looked at Pebble. I don't really have that many options. If I let them go, then there's a high chance that the tree will reach the destroyer rank. Even if I do try to escape, there's a very real chance I might get swept into the tree's illusion. Furthermore, I paused there, recalling a certain vision I had recently experienced. Single quote I think I might know who the one behind all of this is. With that being said, considering the nature of the visions, there was no guarantee that she was the one responsible for everything. Nonetheless, I still had to be wary. The real problem right now is getting near the tree without getting noticed. There were a lot of powerful monsters nearby and getting past them without being noticed was going to be a challenge. In fact, I had no idea how to proceed. Don't worry, but apparently, Pebble did. Just follow them. Quote I blinked my eyes, looking in the direction of where Pebble pointed before looking back at it. Are you serious? Pebble was directly pointing at where Leon and the other were. I half expected Pebble to retract its comment, but seeing its dead serious expression, I knew it wasn't joking. Yes, you can follow them. What, are you? Did you forget you have that stupid tree's bone inside of you? My brows jumped up. Upon hearing this, are you saying that it won't recognize me as a threat? Yes. Considering that stupid tree has no consciousness, it won't recognize the irregularity. Quote. And how sure are you of this assumption? I just had to ask because this felt like an extremely dangerous suggestion. One wrong move and I was done for. Pebble's next words almost made me puke. 50%. Haha. What else could I do but laugh? Hearing the ridiculous percentage, I wanted to just turn around and leave. Still, it's worth a try. At the end of the day, I was confident in escaping. If the monsters didn't detect me then with my domain, alongside my speed, I was certain that I could narrowly escape the situation. It was still risky, but I didn't really have much of a choice. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward while glancing at Pebble who rested quietly over my shoulder. If I do end up dying, I'll make sure you fall alongside me. Thump, thump. With each heavy step, the ground beneath me seemed to shudder, vibrating through my bones. Hyark. A low, guttural growl echoed from the path in front of me. The monsters, their hollow eyes blank and soulless, moved with eerie synchrony, their focus fixed solely on the distant wall, completely dismissing my presence. The sound of their footsteps slow, deliberate grew louder, synchronizing with the beat of my own heart. Bah, thump, bah, thump. My throat tightened, making it difficult to swallow, but I forced it down as cold sweat slicked the back of my shirt, dampening my skin. I moved extremely carefully, trying to navigate myself through the horde of monsters and in the direction of where Leon and the others were heading. But it was then that I had to stop. Lifting my head, my breath left my body. Thump. All of a sudden, an enormous figure strode past, its immense bulk causing the ground to tremble beneath my feet. I froze, barely breathing, as the shadow of the beast fell over me. My pulse thudded in my ears, drowning out all sound except for the muffled thump that came alongside the step. I didn't dare look up, but I felt its presence loom over me. Swallowing hard, my throat felt painfully dry in my throat. This was especially so after I felt a foul smell linger in my nostrils. It smelled putrid, almost like that of rotten eggs in my nose. Crunched up. Thump. As another creature passed, I instinctively moved aside, just enough to let them pass. Hyark. Their hot breath brushed past my face as I closed my eyes and stood rooted on the spot, my body tense and ready to react at any second. Thankfully, thump, thump, just like the first monster, it moved past me and didn't look back. It's working. My nerves were running high, but it was working. Pebble's suggestion was working. I was able to move forward without the monsters taking note of me. Looking ahead and seeing the numerous monsters that were heading my way, I secretly swallowed all the apprehension away and increased my pace. Bah, thump, bah, thump. Despite my best attempts at trying to calm my nerves, my heart continued to beat wildly. So much so that I found a rare notification flash past my eyes. I almost had to do a double take to make sure I wasn't seeing things. It had been a while since I had last seen such a notification that didn't deal with that emotion. It felt almost welcomed considering how I had been stuck recently with regards to my emotive magic. Taking another deep breath, I brushed the thought away and continued to march forward. Thump, thump. With each step of the monsters the earth shuddered. Several times, I almost found myself stumbling forward, just barely keeping myself balanced. Despite none of the monsters looking at me or even paying attention to me, I remained extremely tense. One wrong move and I was certain I would end up dying. Just in case, I had a small vial inside of my lips. That was my last resort. I thought about using it beforehand but thought it'd be a waste considering how things would become more dangerous the further I went. I wanted to use it at just the right time. And I might not have to wait for too long for that time. Slowly lifting my head, my vision became engulfed in a deep, unsettling red. Rustle tilde. Its trees gently rustled in the air while its dark bark shot up towards the sky, towering over everything within its surroundings. My eyes grew slack upon setting sight of the tree, and if not for the fact that I immediately took my eyes away, I was afraid I'd have already fallen into an illusion. In fact, I wasn't even sure if I was an illusion or not at this very moment. And this was what made the tree especially terrifying. Because it could sweep someone under its control without them noticing. Thankfully, I wasn't fully unprepared for this. I can feel the bone inside me resonate slightly. It almost felt like it was screaming for the large tree in front of me. Rustle, rustle. In response, the tree's leaves rustled with more force. The sight made my body tense, but I quickly dismissed it when I finally saw Leon and the others stop. They're stopping. I took the chance to get closer to them, blending quietly within the surroundings as I tried to look for any other presence, but as I looked around, I realized there was no one present. Single quote. Where are they? I was sure they were somewhere, but where exactly? Where could they? Spurt. It was right then that the ground beneath trembled. Before I even had time to react, several large roots sprouted from beneath where the others were, shooting toward them rapidly and tangling over their legs and arms. Its movements were rapid, and in just a second I saw everyone get wrapped by the roots. I wanted to do something but stopped myself. I was rational enough to understand that whatever I did at the moment would only jeopardize myself. The only thing I could do was stare at the scene with bated breath. Or at least, that was what I thought at first. All of a sudden, looking towards the others, I realized something. Leon. Where is Leon? Looking around, he was nowhere in sight. Strange, he was just there. How did he? My head flicked back all of a sudden and my heart almost jumped out of my throat as a figure appeared behind me. When I hadn't even noticed them. However, it was too late. By the time I realized, a root sprouted from the ground, and reaching for my throat, I tried reacting quickly, imagining a green orb, but it was too late. Ook! The root tangled itself around my throat and I felt my body get lifted into the air. All of this happened in a matter of a second, and by the time I understood what had happened, it was too late as I found myself getting thrown towards the tree. Bang! Quote. Exclamation mark quote. I felt the wind get knocked out of me as I smashed directly onto the bark of the tree. Squelch tilde. A root appeared shortly after, tangling my right arm right as I tried to get up, and I heard the sound of a single step ahead of me. Talk. Looking up, a pair of gray eyes looked directly at me as the world above appeared to be covered in a veil of red. With his mask gone, and his disguise thrown away, his presence felt a lot more pressuring. Shilling. Unsheathing his sword, Leon pointed the sword directly my way as his cold eyes looked down on me. Seeing the state he was in, the corner of my lips pulled as I leaned back. The scene, while slightly different from the vision, still ended up being the exact same. Since that was the case, I raised my head and looked behind Leon, towards the figure standing far behind him. Quote. Are you not going to greet me? The figure stepped forward, revealing her soft features resembling much of my own. That's when I felt my lips pull even further. For some reason, the situation felt strangely amusing. Mother. Chapter 509. Don't look 3. Quote. Oh, click, clack. The gentle click of her heels echoed softly, each step breaking the eerie silence as her features emerged from the faint shadow cast by the towering tree above. From her soft brown hair to her matching eyes, she bore a striking resemblance to me. However, if there was one different thing, it was the smile that hung on her lips. It carried hints of surprise, and at the same time felt mocking. You recognize me? Quote. I've never been told about having a sister. Logic tells me you're my mother. Ha ha ha. Covering her mouth, she laughed gently. Her crisp and melodious laugh quietly reverberated through the surroundings. It felt soothing to the ears, and yet, listening to the laugh, I felt the back of my scalp tingle. Something about this woman doesn't feel right. I knew nothing about her. Leon never told me anything about her besides the fact that she was dead. However, she clearly wasn't. In that sense, there were only two possible scenarios that could explain the current situation. 1. That she wasn't actually dead, or 2. This was an illusion. I would like to think that this is an illusion, but looking around, staring at the gently rustling leaves, I licked my lips which had gone dry. Single quote. This is no illusion. Look at you. Something cool touched the bottom of my chin, lifting it up faintly. My heart almost stopped beating then. When did she? It's been so long since I've last seen you. You've grown so much. She paused, bringing her face closer to mine while examining it carefully. Quote. You look just like your father. Her deep brown eyes suddenly turned hollow at the mention of my father. I could see her demeanor shift for a brief second, briefly shifting into that of a new person. I could only stare at her from my position with my breath held. Though I couldn't quite tell how powerful she was, I could feel an invisible pressure enveloping every part of me. Not just his looks, but his demeanor. You're quite calm despite the situation that you're in. Quote. Is that so? I was indeed calm, but not because I wasn't scared or anything like that. Swallowing my saliva, I forced a thin smile and looked around me. You're hosting quite the party over here. Care to tell me what you're planning? Staring blankly at me, my mother suddenly smiled. Her smile was wide, almost enchanting as she let go of my chin and moved back. So not only do you look like your father and your demeanor is similar, but your cunning is not that much different. What could you? Do you think I don't know what you're trying to do? Looking directly at me, her deep brown eyes pierced right through me. I suddenly felt stuck, as several more vines appeared from out of nowhere, grasping my body and pulling it further into the tree. Before I had any chance to react, she turned around and directly placed her hand against Leon's chest. Bang! His body flung away rapidly, crashing towards the distance. Yuck! As a pained groan escaped his lips, Leon collapsed onto the ground and held himself up on all fours, his chest rising and falling rapidly. Then, my mother looked at me, her smile carrying a hint of coldness that seeped right into my body. Do you think I can't see through your tricks? Quote. My heart sank as I slowly turned to look at the struggling Leon. Quote. You should have been more subtle with your actions. Do you think I can't tell who is under my control and who is not? Just because you're pretending to be under my control doesn't mean that I can't tell the difference. Click, clack, slowly walking towards Leon's direction, she bent over and lifted his head up gently. While your appearance wasn't within my estimation, it made things easier for me. I never would have expected that you would have taken it upon yourself to break down the northern walls directly, but you did a good job. She slapped Leon's face a couple of times. It's unfortunate that you stood out a little bit too much. In any case, squelch squelch tilde. With a sharp snap of her fingers, the ground trembled as roots slithered upward like serpents. They writhed and coiled around Leon, their grip tightening as they locked his limbs. In a swift motion, the roots hoisted him into the air, suspending his body in a rigid T-shape. The sound of creaking wood and strained flesh filled the air as Leon's face twisted in pain. Ook! It was a sight that left my stomach churning, and shortly after, her attention turned towards me. Son, she gently said, her voice filling my ears with a strange sense of allure that made my mind grow sluggish. Quote. It's been a while since I last reunited with you. How about the two of us have a nice reunion? Since you're part of my blood, I won't use you as fertilizer for the tree. Instead, I'll let you see the scene that I want to build. The more she spoke, the more I felt my mind blank. Her voice was extremely soft, and my mind grew alarmed with each word that came out of her mouth. Something is wrong. I knew it. My mind knew. And almost every part of me knew it. And yet, unfortunately, you will only be able to see the end product, but I'm sure you'll come around once you see the end of it. You'll see that I'm not crazy, and by then I'll be able to make up for all the neglect that I've caused you. I could do nothing about her voice. The more she spoke, the deeper I sunk. I wanted to seal my ears and stop her from invading my mind, but I knew it was futile. For an individual who could control so many monsters at once, there was no way that I could easily escape her control. Thankfully, my mind was strong. Her words were soft, melodious, and pleasing to the ears, but my mind was strong enough to see through the illusion of it all. I clenched my teeth and resisted her control. Of course, she quickly saw through my resistance as her brows furrowed. Her voice only grew softer and more pleasing from that point. Thump, thump, like a powerful hammer, she tried to break through the resistance that I built in order to avoid her control, but it wasn't easy. Thump, the more I tried to resist, the stronger her attacks became. My mind quivered and I felt a massive headache coming. Even so, I knew I had to resist. I couldn't let her take control of my mind. Especially since she still didn't know I wasn't her real son. The moment she took over, I was almost certain she'd free the real one and seal me away. Thump, thump, the hammering persisted and my face grew numb. She was getting the better of me and my resistance was quickly waning. My entire body started to feel weaker, and I felt the blood drain from my body. Noticing the changes, a faint smile tugged at her lips. You've grown a lot more than I expected. It looks like Aldrich wasn't neglectful in his parenting. It's pleasing to see. She spoke as though she was on the verge of winning. As though everything was under her control. Ha, but it wasn't. Laughing, lifting my head up to stare at her, my left eye twitched due to the pain. Squelch. A root suddenly manifested. from behind me, tangling over my body and pulling me back. Squelch, squelch tilde. Several more roots appeared from behind me, clamping onto my body while pulling me deeper back. My mother's expression changed as she mumbled, "What's going on?" with a frown, but it was useless. Turning to look in Leon's direction, I saw him glaring in my direction. From the start, Leon was never meant to be a spy. How could he be a spy? What would he even be able to do with his power? He'd at most try to backstab her, but given her power, how would she fall for such a trick? I also knew that there was no way for her to fall for such a trick. Still, the more obvious it was, the more likely she'd let things go in order to see through the scheme. The only problem with her thinking was that I wanted her to act that way. I had only one goal from the start. Squelch, squelch tilde. That goal was none other than getting Almighty close to its real body. Because only then would Almighty be able to regain control of it. For once the visions were able to help me. Knowing that a scenario like this was likely going to happen, I understood that there was a high likelihood the situation was going to unfold like this. It was for that reason that I had explained the vision to Almighty. From that point, even though I had lost connection with Almighty, I knew it would proceed. Like the two of us discussed. What's going on? Seeing the situation turning, I saw my mother's face change. Her demeanor was no longer sweet, and her face started to contort. I saw a different side to her. A creepier and colder side that made my entire body shiver. "What do you think you're doing?" Stepping forward, she raised her hand in an attempt to stop me from moving back, but it was too late. Squelch tilde. The roots pulled me deeper back into the tree, and right as her hand was about to grasp my body, my vision grew dark. A sudden cool sensation washed over me, gripping every inch of my body. It was an intense, bone-chilling cold, and for a moment, it felt as though I was floating weightlessly in the vast emptiness of space. My mind cooled and I almost felt myself lose track of time in this weird state. But the sensation was short-lived. Rustle tilde. The color red soon devoured my vision, and my feet touched something hard. By the time I regained my bearing, a massive tree loomed over me, directly staring down at me. Standing next to it was a small owl. I smiled at the sight and was just about to speak when Almighty's voice echoed within my ears, sounding a lot more hurried than I expected. "Don't look." I stopped, blinking my eyes. The coldness that I thought disappeared suddenly returned and roots started to climb from all around me. Before I even had the time to understand, Almighty spoke again. "You look, you die." It was then that I understood. Almighty. Something had gone wrong during its integration back with its main body. My heart squeezed. Chapter 510. Don't look for. Although I didn't understand, I immediately lowered my head upon hearing Almighty's voice. "You look, you die." Sweat poured down my face as I stared at the ground beneath me. It was also then that I noticed the numerous red leaves that were sprawled beneath me, their deep red color covering the entire floor in a veil of red. Throb. The mere sight of them made my heart throb and I hurriedly closed my eyes. "Don't look." Almighty's voice replayed in my mind. What in the world is happening? The situation felt suffocating, and I didn't know how to react. However, despite it all, I remained calm. That was all it took for me to find my voice again. What is happening? Although I couldn't see, it didn't mean that I couldn't talk. I wasn't able to fully integrate back with my main body. I figured that much. I wouldn't have found myself in this situation otherwise. What next? Is there a way for you to reintegrate back with your main body? I do not know. What? This piece of information surprised me. How could Almighty not regain control over its own body? Wasn't this its body? Why wouldn't it be able to? Are you saying that her control over your real body is stronger than you thought and you can't break through? Yes. A clear and affirmative answer. I took a deep breath, forcing my mind to calm down further. In that case, what do you need to break through? Is there a way that I can help? I didn't really have much of a choice in this regard. If Almighty couldn't regain control over its own body back then I'd be as good as done for. Yes, you can do something. Okay, tell me. Stall for time. I almost opened my eyes. What did it just say? Stall for time while I try to fight for control back. That. Make sure you keep your eyes closed the entire time. If you look, you will die. Wait, I'm leaving. Just like that, Almighty left me on my own devices. I could hardly understand what was going on before I suddenly heard a familiar, squelching, sound coming from right behind me and my thoughts froze. Swoosh. Instinctively, I moved my body to the side as I heard a gentle rustling coming from behind me. However, I was a little late with my actions. Ook! A sharp pain flared in my side as I felt a gash tear across my body. Quickly covering my right side and feeling my hand become damp, I tightly clenched my teeth. This is bad. Without the ability to see, I could hardly tell where the attacks were coming from. I could pick up a few clues and hints from the sounds around me, but it was barely enough to go on. Swoosh. Flicking my head to the right, the side of my cheek burned. Unfortunately, I didn't have much time to dwell on the pain as I heard a faint rustling coming from my right side. It was just when I was about to move when a voice whispered in my ear. Stop, you're moving too far to the right. Ah, I pressed my foot against the ground, and something grazed the tip of my nose. Cold sweat trickled down my back as my entire body chilled. I had narrowly avoided being struck. Had I not listened to Pebble then I would have. Don't get complacent. There's several coming from your right and left. Damn it, I felt my face visibly contort at the news. What sort of messed up situation was this? They're coming. Swoosh, swoosh, but I still didn't have much of a choice. Perking up my ears, and following Pebble's voice, I contorted my body in a way I had never done so before and just barely avoided the incoming attacks. Thump. Falling back, I quickly pushed myself back up. Following this, Pebble's voice grew grave. Quote. Use step of suppression. I didn't hesitate, I just acted. Stepping forward, I felt the mana drain rapidly from my body. What followed after were a series of thumps, as the roots all fell down onto the ground. However, instead of being happy, my heart sank. How many were there? Pebble's tone made a lot more sense. But, I can't keep up like this. Without the ability to see, I couldn't rely on my ears and Pebble to tell me what to do. They were too unreliable. I needed to think of something else. A better way to handle this. Ah, a thought occurred to me then. What if, use the skill again, human. They're coming from all sides. It would be snap. With a snap of my fingers, something stirred beneath me, writhing before gradually spreading outward. The mana inside of my body drained further, but it was still manageable as my scope of vision suddenly expanded. I can see it. Swoosh. My right ear tingled and several images formed in my mind. It all became easy from then. Bringing my hand forward, threads shot out in several directions, all aimed at the incoming roots. Shoo, shoo. With pinpoint precision, the threads struck the roots directly, snapping them back. I heaved a visible sigh of relief upon seeing this as my muscles relaxed. I should have thought of this sooner. Though I still couldn't see, my domain allowed me to sense everything that entered it. Using that information, I was able to create images inside of my mind to replicate exactly what was happening around me. It all became easy from that point. Swoosh. The roots were neither too fast nor too slow. I could easily avoid them now that I could visualize them. I also understood that this was merely a small glimpse of the power of Almighty's real body. It was likely far too busy dealing with Almighty, who was struggling to regain control back of its own body to fully focus on me. I took advantage of this and flicked my hand in the air, giving form to several dozen threads that shot all around to form a small net that protected me from the roots. From the moment one would get close, the threads would snap, cutting the root directly. Ha! With a visible look of relief, I finally decided to open my eyes. Ook! My head throbbed the moment I did so as the faint outline of a tree appeared not far from where I stood, but I was still able to remain conscious due to the fact that my domain presided over it. Quote. Looks like we're safe for now. I looked at Pebble beneath me, its body gently blending with the darkness that surrounded the two of us. If not for its eyes, I would have probably lost track of it. It's not over. What? I hastily raised my head and looked at the outline of the tree in the distance. At first glance, everything seemed fine. The leaves rustled gently in the air while the tree remained firmly rooted. What exactly could? There's no guarantee that stupid tree will be able to take back its body. No. Pebble's eyes narrowed. Quote. It's in fact losing. What? I hastily turned to look at Pebble. Is her control that strong? No. Then, the body is rejecting that stupid owl. Is that even possible? Yes. Pebble turned its head to look in my direction. Quote. And it's all your fault. My fault. I incredulously looked at the cat. How could it be my fault? I don't even recall doing anything to its body that might. More precisely, it's that blood of yours. Wait, a thought suddenly occurred to me. Are you talking about the blood I ingested? Oricleus's one. Yes. Pebble nodded its head, slowly walking towards the outline of the tree in the distance. Whatever that blood may be, whether it's from a past version of yourself or someone else, it has seamlessly integrated into your body. That includes your bones. It all suddenly started to click into place. That foolish owl and I are now part of those bones. The two of us reside within them, and the entity to whom that blood belonged was incredibly powerful enough to completely overpower us and integrate the bones fully with your body. Ah, with that stupid owl out of its main body, it no longer was capable of cognitive thinking at a high level. The moment that owl left, its main body merely became a vessel waiting for its mind to return. However, its mind has been tainted. Pebble looked directly at me. Its body can no longer recognize its mind. With the added control imposed by the woman who birthed you, the owl is now struggling to reclaim its body. In fact, the situation looks very grim. Rustle tilde. Right after Pebble's words faded, a rustling sound echoed through the air. Lifting my head, my face started to stiffen. A faint droplet of red appeared in the dark world of my domain. At first, I was perplexed. But soon, like ink spreading from a marker, the color red began to expand in the dark world. Leaves started to spread and my heart started to throb. Staring at the expanding red, I felt something invade my mind. Immediately, alarm bells rang in my mind, telling me to shut my eyes and look away, but I can't. To my horror, my eyes wouldn't close. They refused to close. All I could do was stare blankly at the leaves that hung in the air, slowly exposing the true body of the tree. I felt my breath leave my body. I wanted to turn around, but before I knew it, roots appeared all around me, grasping onto my legs and arms. When exactly? Squelch, squelch tilde. My mind churned all of a sudden. Unable to tear my gaze away from the tree, I felt everything around me grow blurry as all noise and thoughts started to fade. I was able to remain calm. But what could calmness do in this situation? I was starting to losing my mind. My thoughts were start to fading. I couldn't thinking. Snap out of it. Breaking me out of it all was a loud voice as I felt my body get shoved to the side. What in the? By the time I regained my bearings, a pair of gray eyes stared back at me. Leon. I blinked once more to make sure I wasn't seeing things and soon I finally started to realize what had happened. You. Me. What? His breathing was rough and he looked to be completely worn out. You look like shit. I shouldn't have saved you. I cracked a smile then. Took you long enough. Yeah. Leon took another deep breath and swiped his sword down, cutting the roots and tangling my entire body. I was also stuck in the same spot as you. If not for the fact that you made your position obvious with your domain, I would have had a hard time finding you. Right. Shaking off the roots tangling my arms and legs, I wobbled down and just barely managed to keep myself steady. Pebble appeared right below me. You don't have much time. I know. I wasn't looking at the tree, and yet, I could already feel it trying to influence my mind. We didn't have much time, but what do? I didn't know what to do. What exactly could I do to stop this entire situation? If I failed to help Almighty, Julian's mother would fully control the tree, and I'd be done. Especially since there was a very high likelihood of her figuring out that I wasn't the real Julian. What exactly can I? No, don't think. Keeping my head lowered, an idea occurred to me and my chest trembled. Under Leon's and Pebble's confused looks, I stepped forward. Towards the tree. Human. Julian, what are you? I didn't pay attention to their voices and just focused on the tree. My mind was once again starting to grow numb and my thoughts were starting to disappear. But I didn't need to think. I just needed to act. Arriving by the tree, I reached out from my mouth and retrieved a small vial. Plop. Opening it, I slowly poured it down. A viscous red liquid plopped down onto the tree, sinking into its root as I slowly brought my hand forward and touched the bark of the tree. Very well, I mumbled. I hope this doesn't go to waste. My vision grew dark shortly after.